Oh yeah. Anybody got a Massey's Nasty shirt in this picture? Okay. Wait, look at Jan. Look at Jan.
Okay, thanks for coming, and obviously our speaker is today, but before we get started, I'm going to ask you all to stand up, and we'll get us started with an invocation.
Thank you, Lord, for another opportunity to be here. Thank you for all the safety and the freedom and all the wonderful gifts that you've given us. And we know that you're sovereign over the events of the world, and we are secure in you. We ask for your support, your protection, your guidance, your wisdom for those who represent us in Washington and in Frankfurt and locally. We just thank you for the privilege we have of serving with these people. Everything we ask is in the name of Jesus Christ, our Redeemer. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please have a seat. Before we get started, I always start off with something. So, our speaker is Representative Thomas Massie. But I do have a couple things to say first regarding Congress. Okay, so we all know, what are the two things that we cannot avoid in life? Death and taxes. Who knows the difference between death and taxes? Well, the difference is Congress doesn't get together to make death worse. Something else, you know the difference between pro and con. They're opposites. Pro being for something, con against. So, that being said, pro, con being opposites, what would be the opposite of progress? Congress. Okay, sorry. Now, you know what? I would feel embarrassed. I feel like I'd be putting, if I was introducing any other congressman, I think I would be making, I would feel embarrassed saying that, and maybe make them feel a little embarrassed. But I feel like we actually have the exception to the rule here, who doesn't actually apply to that. And just things like, when I travel, and I'm talking to people about politics, and it comes up that I'm from Kentucky. Almost always I get this, how can you people re-elect Mitch McConnell every time, like keep putting him in office, and then you elect Andy Beshear twice? And I have to explain that you're right. I mean, we're guilty as a state, but I'm from northern Kentucky.
That's right, don't blame me.
In northern Kentucky, we elect Rand Paul and Thomas Massie. Okay. Well, anyway, with that being said, I'm not to delay it anymore. Let me introduce to you his pronouns are he, him. He, also known as Nostrus Thomas, Representative Thomas Massey.
line of jokes about Congress here. This is one I didn't know until my friend Louis Gomer, who's from Texas, told me this. But there was this convict in Texas. He had been found guilty, and they were going to hang him. They were still doing public hanging. So they erected the gallows and hung him out there in the city, and it was more people showed up for his hanging than any other hanging because he was so despicable. He had raped and stolen and murdered, and there were so many victims. That's why there were so many people out there. So he gets up on the gallows, and they asked him, they said, would you like to say a final word? Would you like to address the crowd before, we put the noose around your neck? He said, no, I'm fine. Just let's get this over with. And they said, well, are you sure? Because everybody always tries to, ask forgiveness. You got a lot of victims out here, victims' families. Really, the Lord might go easier on you if you would apologize. He said, no, I'm fine. I don't need to say anything. About that time, somebody in the crowd jumps up, and he says, would the gentleman yield? Would the gentleman yield? And he asked the sheriff, he said, who is that? We said, well, that's our local congressman. He said, well, what's he asking? He said, well, that's parliamentary speak for, you've got some time, and he would like to have your time to address the crowd if you would like to. And he said, can I do that? He said, well, we've never done it before, but he is a congressman, and he is using, parliamentary procedure, so, yeah, we'll allow you to do it. You want to do that? He said, I'll do it on one condition. He said, what's that? You hang me first. So hopefully my speech won't be that bad. You'll want to be hung first. But it will be depressing, though, because I am going to talk about Congress. Did anybody listen to Brian Thomas today? Okay. Well, a little bit of this will be the same, because I was we were mass communicating, like in Brother Where Art Thou. But I want to talk about where we just came from and where we're going. The biggest thing we do, and we fail to use this tool, but the biggest thing we do, that Congress does, is we spend money every year.
Yes.
It's supposed to be 12 separate bills, and you've heard me talk about this all the time. You always put them together, and then they accuse you of not voting for soldiers' pay if you don't vote for this bill. And so it's got good stuff along with the bad stuff, and that's how they get everybody to vote for it. But people kind of got tired of that. So usually what they do is they try to add some bright, shiny object to make you all feel good about it and to make the congressman feel good about it. So they don't just take 12 separate bills, they'll add like one thing to it. It's supposed to be great. But it's Lucy and Charlie Brown in the football, they always take that bright, shiny object off at the end if it has anything good about it. And so this year they were going to do the continuing resolution, which is just the same omnibus as last year. That's all the continuing resolution is. It's just a copy of last year. But they said, oh, it's okay, conservatives will like this. We're going to attach something called the SAVE Act. And the SAVE Act is a bill to keep illegal aliens from voting. And we'll use this tool to get the Senate to pass the SAVE Act. Because we've already voted on the SAVE Act in Congress. It passed this summer. They just said, we'll just attach it again to this continuing resolution, and conservatives will like it because of that. There's just one problem. They've done this 12 years in a row. And I didn't have any patience when we came back from August recess. And the first committee that meets every week is the Rules Committee, because we decide what Congress will do that week. And I guess as punishment, they put me on the Rules Committee. So I ended up showing up half a day early to Congress for the last 2 years to be on this committee. And so you get to give the first speech of the week, and I decided, and so this was the first speech since August recess, so I just laid it all out and told everybody what was really going on, which is, I said it was fake. You guys are setting up a fake fight. And there were some of my conservative colleagues either fell for it or went along with it because it was popular to have the SAVE Act on the CR. And I said, this is all theater. You all know how this ends. You're going to take the SAVE Act off. Speaker Johnson is not going to fight. He is not even going to threaten to fight. In fact, he had already pre-negotiated the surrender with Republican senators. he had already told them, according to one article, that you can just go ahead, don't worry, we're not gonna shut down the government, you can take the SAVE Act off when it comes over there. So I just laid it all out for everybody in one speech. Well, one of the people one of the conservatives who thought this was a good idea is actually the richest guy in the United States, Elon Musk. Thankfully, he's on our side now. But he saw the SAVE Act on the CR, and he said, this is really important. And you know, Elon Musk gets millions of retweets. So now I'm not just going against the swamp, I'm going against Elon Musk. And he controls the only free speech platform there is, right? So I'm like, oh man, how am I going to get through to him? So I replied to Elon Musk with my speech in the Rules Committee, where I just laid it all out, how it was a big fake fight. And Elon retweeted my speech, and he said, I hope you're wrong. So I thought, how can I explain to Elon Musk that I'm right, and what would he believe? What could I say that he would believe? So Twitter, now called X, has an artificial intelligence called Grok. So I went to Grok, and I asked Grok, is Thomas Massie right about the SAVE Act? Is this a big fake fight? And Grok does like this 5-paragraph dissertation on how I'm right. Given what Congress always does. And so I told Elon Musk, I replied to him, I said, let's see what Grok has to say. And so I put it all on there. And then, unfortunately, I was right. We got a big CR. They passed it, not on the last day, not on September 30th. They passed it 2 days early and sent us home. That's another trick they do. If you'll vote for this, and if it can pass soon, we'll give you 2 more days of vacation. So that's the trick they use this year. And the CR goes until December 20th, which sets up another crisis 4 days before Christmas Eve. And the reason they choose December 20th is because, unlike what a lot of things on the internet, we don't have artificial intelligence. Well, maybe it is artificial intelligence in Congress, but like these are human beings, and they want to be home at Christmas, okay? And so they know if whatever is put in front of them on December 20th, if it passes, they can go home and open presents with their kids and grandkids. And if it doesn't pass, you're going to be stuck there with Hakeem Jeffries and Nancy Pelosi and AOC. I mean, even that's kind of a hard decision for me. But I would just tell my family, come to D.C., you're going to open presents up here. I'm sorry. But that's why they picked December 20th. Now, I got a provision put into law. Joe Biden signed it into law, and Chuck Schumer voted for it. And this was snuck into the debt limit increase a year and a half ago that would cut. And it says if we do a CR that lasts a year, even one that lasts 6 months, everything gets cut 1% when you get to April 30th. And that is in law. In fact, if we get to December 20th and they do a continuing resolution that goes past April 30th, everything gets cut 1%. It's basically the penny plan is signed into law. All we have to do is a long-term CR. And that is why Mike Johnson picked a date short of April 30th. They're terrified of a 1% cut up there. I'm afraid they're going to take some kind of disaster relief and also add it to the Ukraine money and add that to all the other foreign aid, and then add that to the omnibus. They like putting a lot of stuff together that if you vote against it, you're supposedly evil. Right. So that's what to keep your eye on there. Another thing that came out this last week on the Judiciary Committee. By the way, I sound like I'm telling, like I'm exaggerating, but I'm on 4 committees now. They did this to punish me. I spent 10 years just trying to keep my committees, and then they decided to put me on 4 committees instead of taking me off all the committees. I say I went past the drop date, and I got too many credit hours. I'm definitely dropping some of these next Congress. So I'm on the Rules Committee, I'm on the Judiciary Committee, I'm on the Transportation Committee, and I'm on the Weaponization of Government Committee. But on the Judiciary Committee, we had the Inspector General for the DOJ, Inspector General Horowitz, in front of us this week to talk about actually the punishment of whistleblowers at the FBI. they have punished literally every whistleblower at the FBI, withhold their pay, took away their security clearances, even like would move them and then withhold their moving expenses, like all kinds of punishment on these whistleblowers. That's what the hearing is supposed to be about. But what I learned is, once they're sworn in, you can ask them any question you want. So I usually ask them something that has nothing to do with the hearing, but the thing the hearing should be about. And they have to answer you because they're under oath. So we had Inspector General Horowitz. You know, the Inspector General system, there's like 60 of them. Some of them are better than others. And it's hard to say where Horowitz is on this. Whether he's being slow-walked or he's the slow walker, I'm not sure. In either case, he was supposed to have done a report on January 6th, like years ago. We are 3.5 years past when he said he would investigate this at the DOJ and the FBI and give us a report. Well, here's what I know that's in his report, because I can't release what I've seen. They don't give me a copy of it, but I've talked to like people who work for him. And what's in that report is an insane number of FBI, can't really call them employees, but they're confidential human sources, but they're not really people who just inform. They're people who are in the crowd, who are acting like protesters, who in some cases do break the law. And in fact, this was the case in the Governor Whitmer, I call it Fed napping because it was mostly feds, the kidnapping conspiracy, where there were more feds involved in it than there were the people entrapped, and half the people in that prosecution got off because of entrapment. And nobody has been exonerated for January 6th because of entrapment, but I think there's a good reason that they should be. My best guess is there were about 200 FBI people in the crowd on January 6th. And the way I get to that number, I've talked to Clay Higgins, he's a congressman from Louisiana. He estimates 200 because in some of these cases, these January 6 folks, there'll be 30 people involved, okay, in that vignette where they are in the Capitol. And then in their court documents, you find out, let's say 3 of those 30 were confidential human sources, okay? Well, if you extrapolate that to the whole crowd, then you get to 200. But there's another thing going on here. Every FBI field office leading up to January 6th had confidential human sources. So like, you know, the ones in the Pacific Northwest, the FBI in Texas, all of the field offices had people infiltrating groups on Facebook and Twitter and social media and chat boards and forums. The FBI was actively involved in like working with the planners and maybe in some cases planning, going and protesting, okay? And so what they did is they sent those people to Washington, D.C. So you've got, in every field office in the United States, every FBI field office sent people to Washington, D.C. And there are several field offices and several sent more than one. So we know there were a lot of confidential human sources there. Now the question is, people will try to brush this off. I've seen them do this to me, like the media, the press, the fact check. They'll say, oh, but Congressman Massie, these were just regular people who got caught up in it, and then they became informants to get a lighter, conviction. So they pled guilty, but then they also gave the information. So what I did with Inspector General Horowitz, one of the questions I asked him, after I found out that he's not going to release this report until after the election. Now, the last time I talked to him, it was supposed to get released this summer so it wouldn't be near the election. So I know he's taking into account the election. I know he wants to avoid releasing a report near the election. So what's happened? Instead of releasing it this summer, he's going to release it sometime way in the future. How far in the future? I think it depends on who wins the election. So one of the questions I asked him, this was actually, I have a staffer who's pretty clever. He told me I should ask this question. I asked him, what were the total reimbursements for travel for the confidential human sources? And he said he didn't know the exact number. Okay, so number one, he just there in a hearing admitted that there were confidential human sources. But more importantly, he admitted the nature that they were people who were planning to be in the crowd, that wasn't somebody who after the fact pled guilty and informed on somebody else because they were just caught up in it. No, these were paid FBI people, paid to be in the crowd that day. Some of them went into the Capitol, which is breaking the law. You are not, even if you're a confidential human source, you are not allowed to break the law unless you follow very strict, rigid procedures and have authorization to break the law. Okay, so these are the things that are in the report. He says he's still trying to decide what is what's confidential and what has to be declassified and this, that, and the other thing. But he could print 95% of his report right now before the election, where he hasn't arbitrated yet what has to be redacted or not. Just leave that stuff out, but he's not doing it. And so, and I think, part of the reason this has taken a long time is the FBI's dragging its feet. He's not part of the FBI or the DOJ. He's the Inspector General, so he's totally separate from that, got a totally separate budget. But he's been slow walked by the FBI, and I'm starting to wonder if he isn't slow walking some of this stuff himself. Which is really dangerous, because Inspector Generals are the ones who are, they're paid to oversee the overseers, right? And when we get stonewalled in Congress, they're supposed to go get those answers, right? But we're not getting those answers. Now, what's the solution to this? It gets back to the first thing I talked about. We have the power of the purse. And I had a breakfast once with Justice Scalia before he passed away. And there were about a dozen of us, Republicans, and one of my colleagues said, "What are you going to do to restore the constitutional balance of government?" And he said, "Well, what do you mean?" "Well, there's three branches, and the executive branch is so powerful, they're just running over the legislative branch." And my colleague wanted Justice Scalia to intervene and restore some balance. He's a judge, he should be litigating these things and giving us more power. And Scalia said, "That's not my job. And oh, by the way, you guys are way more powerful if you would just use the tools that you have in the Constitution. You're way more powerful than the executive branch." And my colleague said, "But it's so hard to impeach somebody. You got to get 2/3 in the Senate to convict. Politically, it backfires, and it's just too hard to impeach." And Scalia said, "I'm not talking about impeachment. I'm talking about the power of the purse." Now, at the time we were having breakfast, John Boehner was the speaker. Republicans were in the majority in the House, and Barack Obama was the president. And Scalia said, "You guys fund everything you complain about. Just quit funding it."
Yes.
That is all we have to do. And, I've had discussions about this with Jim Jordan. He's frustrated. I'm frustrated because it's our speaker who's given up, just abdicated all of this power by doing continuing resolutions and omnibus bills. And I've said this, and I fully believe it. If we were to withhold funding for one toner cartridge at the FBI, they would show up at our door and say, "What do you need?" This copier quit working. We need the toner cartridge. And we could hold the toner cartridge and say, "All right, give us these answers." But instead, what are we doing? We're building them a new building. And this CR just continues the money for that building. Of course they're going to laugh at us when we say, "We created you. We created your department. We fund your department. You give us the answers." But then we keep funding it when they don't give us the answers. So that's how you get to this. And that's what you give up when you do all 12 bills in one bill. You give up that power to go in discreetly and defund things. Some of the things that I would defund, I've got some really good colleagues on these issues, like Harriet Hageman from Wyoming. One of the best things she did was replace Liz Cheney.
Yes.
She deserves sainthood for that alone. So, but she actually turns out to be really good, and she's been fighting this electronic animal ID. Our government has been pushing this for 20, 30 years, trying to mandate electronic tags in cattle and hogs. Now, the reason that they want to tag them is they want to control them.
Yeah.
And you have a coalition, I call it, it's like the bootleggers and the Baptists, when they get together against the alcohol, initiatives. In this case, the Baptists are the I'm gonna quit using the analogy because I like that. But I'm a Methodist, but still ecumenical in this speech.
We just don't say hi in the liquor store.
Right, you don't say hi in the store to the Catholics, right? Okay, I'm gonna get in trouble. Stay out of religion. I'm in politics. I'm in a dangerous enough field right now. But you've got this coalition of two groups that have the same interests at the end of the day, or they want to use the same tool. It's the group, it's like the PETA folks who don't think anybody should eat meat. They want you to eat the bugs and be happy, or to eat some kind of factory-made fake something, and they just want to outlaw meat altogether. They know to do this, just like with guns, if you're going to confiscate them, you got to know how many there are and where they are and who owns them, right? Well, that's what the electronic tagging gives them. It would make it a lot easier. I mean, look at what's happened in, I think it's Ireland or Scotland. Like, as soon as they got the electronic tags, they started telling farmers how many they could raise, okay, instead of a free market. So you got those people who don't want you to have any meat, and then you've also got what I'll call the bootleggers. This is a better analogy than the Baptists. The bootleggers are the 4 meat packers that control 85% of the meat processed in the United States. One's owned by China, that's Smithfield. One's owned by Brazil, that's JBS. Brazil's owned by China anyway. So basically 2 are owned by China, 2 of the 4 big meat packers. They want electronic ID tags because what they'll do is if you bring an animal to sell it at market, they'll run the wand over it. It'll come up and say, oh, this farmer's not in compliance with 86 different EPA, FDA, USDA rules, and environmental rules, etc. And so they can't sell the cow. Now, to be in compliance with all those rules, you'd have to have a lawyer, a veterinarian, you'd have to have all these on staff. An environmentalist, you'd have to have all of these. You can't do that if you're a small farmer. So what would you do if you wanted to farm? You would basically raise hogs for Smithfield, or you would raise cattle for JBS. Just like if you were to raise chickens, you basically buy the chicks from the same people you buy the feed from the same people who are going to buy the chicken at the end of the day, right? It's all verticalized. They're trying to verticalize. The meat packers are. They want to control the farmers. They don't control the beef farmers yet, and that's what they want. So they're all for this animal ID. And then you got the Farm Bureau that's for it. And I'm sorry, some of you are probably in Farm Bureau. They're good at the county level. They got cognitive dissonance at the state level, and they are downright on the wrong side of everything at the federal level almost, as far as if you're a small farmer. So you got the Farm Bureau is pushing electronic ID tags because there's also money. The government's giving money to corporations who are going to make these tags, so they're for it, and all those lobbyists are there. So that's why they're doing these tags right now with no congressional authorization. And the only way to stop it is to defund it. So we forced a vote on that. It was Harry Hageman's amendment, and I made sure it got made in order because I was on Rules Committee, and that's where the Rules Committee decides which amendments get a vote, and I put my foot down on that. We got a vote, but we failed. Because there aren't enough Republicans who are educated on this in Congress to know what is coming next, that it's going to kill small farms. It'll be the end of the cattlemen in the United States, independent cattlemen. That's one of the things we fought. We fought the beef, actually it's called the Commodity Checkoff Program. They're about 24 things, like if you sell beef or soybeans, pork or milk, have any of you ever, do you remember the Got Milk commercials? Yeah. I haven't seen one of those in a while. Do you remember beef, it's what's for dinner? Okay, that's all funded with the checkoff program, which means it used to be the case when a farmer sold a beef, you could check a box and say, I want $1 to go to this promotion organization. Or if you sold milk, you could say, I want $1 for every, whatever it was, 100 pounds of butter fat, I don't know what the metric is, to go to those commercials. Well, Congress passed a law and said, we'll just take the checkoff box away, and everybody's checked in, and there's no way to check out. So you're going to give, as a farmer, every time you sell something, you're going to give $1 to this program. And they made it mandatory for dozens of things that you farm. And the people working at these organizations, some of them are making $1 million a year. And the commercials aren't getting run. And there's a prohibition of them using that money to lobby Congress. but it's all fungible. And so they take that money and then they get a little bit of money from somewhere else, and they claim they're using that other money to lobbyists. But they are, the people who make money on the checkoff program are lobbying Congress with that money against the law to keep the checkoff program alive. And guess what? You cannot do a FOIA on these organizations. These are the worst things. When you get something that's like a Frankenstein, it's part government, it's part private industry, and they have the power of the government, but none of the accountability of like FOIA, that's what these checkoff programs are. Vilsack, who's the Secretary of Agriculture under Obama, when Hillary didn't win, he was out of a job. And so what did he do? He went and ran the milk checkoff program, made $1 million a year. He went from ag secretary to $1 million a year off the backs of the farmers. And now what's he do now? He's the ag secretary for Biden. Like, it's a revolving door, and he's been around twice. And he makes $1 million when he's out of office a year. So anyways, we tried to reform these programs. Victoria Sparks, she was born in the Soviet Union. She's from Ukraine. She's an awesome congresswoman from Indiana who understands this checkoff program, and she fought that. I got her amendment made in order using the Rules Committee. We had a vote, we failed, but at least there's transparency, right? Just to get a vote on these things, I mean, people hate us for breathing air when we force these things to the floor. The lobbyists were in the Rules Committee lobbying. You never see lobbyists in the Rules Committee. Most people don't even know it exists, but it's as your state senators and reps who are here, can you all stand up if you're a state senator or state rep? Mary and Steve, give them a round of applause. By the way, they tried to beat them all with some corporate money here, and you guys all won, so that's why you're Massey's Nasties, right? That's right. Anyways, you guys know that rules are important, right? You got to know the rules if you're going to win, because they'll change the rules on you if you are winning. So you got to anticipate it. But that's one of the reasons I'm on the Rules Committee. Those are just a few of the things that we're fighting. I could be here for hours, but I want to ask you all what you want to talk about. If you got questions about what's going on there, what's going to go on. I do not have a silver. I don't have a crystal ball or a silver bullet. I'd use the silver bullet first. I don't have either of those, so I can't tell you what's going to happen in the election. I think it's a coin toss. I do know, by the way, I do know J.D. Vance personally. By the way, Trump, I've got a funny story. Trump wanted to call and leave me a message about Rhonda passing. And so he got my number from Jim Jordan, but I have like this Indian voice on my phone. He called up my phone and he said, "Jim, you gave me the wrong number." I said, "No, that's Massey. He just was wrong." So he did leave me a very nice message. But and J.D. Vance, before he was, I wouldn't say I'm best friends with J.D. Vance, but we text each other. We know each other pretty well. We got together and talked about Ukraine. He's on the right side of that, which is keep your money here. And anyways, J.D. Vance also sent me condolences too. But he's a good guy, and I think that probably became apparent if you watched the debate. Very well spoken.
Excellent.
I said he's appropriated my culture though, because I'm from Vanceburg, and I'm a real hillbilly, and he's a Buckeye. Like, I have told him this to his face. I'm like, in your book when you wrote about those hillbilly cousins you went and saw in the summer and played in the creek, that was me. Let me get him, then you. Yeah.
So, what's your point of view about how come Johnson's doing what he's doing and how he votes the way he does?
I think he's a lost ball in tall weeds. I think he's in over his head, and I don't like this. I don't like moving. Let's say, usually when a speaker goes away, everybody just moves up one spot. Or in Paul Ryan's case, they moved him from the most powerful committee, Ways and Means. They moved him over. I don't like that, but one of the disadvantages if you come out of nowhere is you don't have enough staff to fill all those positions. You don't even know what some of those positions do. And for instance, the Rules Committee, the nickname is the Speakers Committee. Because until this Congress, it's always been a rubber stamp for the Speaker. And that's how the Speaker controlled everything. Well, we took that away from the Speaker in exchange for letting Kevin be the Speaker. And I helped negotiate that deal. They said, okay, well, I won't go into all the Rules Committee and how that all happened. But anyways, Johnson didn't even really know what the Rules Committee did. Like, I knew what it did. That's why I knew it was important and I had to get on it. But if you're the Speaker and you're 6 months into your Speaker term and you don't even have one of your staff on the Rules Committee, that's a problem. Because that's called Speakers Committee. But I saw that in a lot of places. And he had kind of like Trump's first term. He had to rely on other people. And, well, who are the experts? Well, a lot of them over on K Street. A lot of them have been here 40 years. And so I think he got populated with a lot of swamp creatures.
Yeah.
And he's in over his head. And I think that's there's some other issues, but that's basically it. Yeah.
I know as this voter, I would not like to see him as speaker again. I know what you're thinking, who's going to throw the hat in? Or do you have to follow that, the old good old boys club
Well,
in the long seniority?
Well, I would love to have Jim Jordan. Warren Davidson and I were basically his campaign managers in that internal fight, like keeping the list. Okay, we got to call this person. Have you tried this? Who knows this congressman? Who knows what their issue is? How can we? So we tried to get him elected. There were several people who just fell on their sword. They're not running for re-election, and they just stepped in front of the freight train to keep Jim Jordan from being the speaker. And so that was really depressing to me. I think we've got a good chance.
Can you bring him up again?
Oh, yeah. And before I get to that, so I do think it was, if you knew where Kevin McCarthy was and all the agreements he had made with us, you might agree with me more. I know some people don't, but I think we should have kept him as speaker. He was obligated to do a lot of things, and as soon as we replaced him, Mike Johnson had none of those obligations. He owed nobody anything. People were just so tired, and 8 months into that, Marjorie Taylor Greene and I said, he's horrible. We got to do the motion to vacate. So we brought it up. And Marjorie was leading it. I was the only one supporting her on it, who would actively do it. And we had enough votes, but what happened is it became apparent that Hakeem Jeffries and Nancy Pelosi would vote for Mike Johnson to be speaker. And so they tried to bluff, well, not really bluff, they didn't want us to call it. And so they showed us they had the cards to beat us. And we said, okay, well, we signed up for this ass whipping, we've got to take it. Somebody's taking an ass whipping, even if it's going to be me and Marjorie. So we followed through with the vote to demonstrate that it was a uniparty. And the reason Mike Johnson survived that motion to vacate, unlike Kevin McCarthy, Mike Johnson survived the motion to vacate because most of the Democrats voted for it. Because they said, we've never had it so good.
Yeah.
We'd be an idiot to vacate him and then get Jim Jordan.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the Democrats kept him in there. If it were just a straight up vote, I don't think Mike Johnson would make it. Okay? But here's what I'm worried about. And this is, you guys, once I say it, you're going to know it's true. If Trump says, re-elect Mike Johnson, you're probably going to get Mike Johnson. If Trump says we need new blood, you'll get somebody besides Mike Johnson. And if Trump stays out of it, I think Mike Johnson loses. And that's just...
You can all write Trump a letter and say,
please,
don't
yeah.
want Mike Johnson.
Well, I mean, the good news is Marjorie's got Trump's ear. And, hopefully his opinion will change. I'm assuming he wins. hopefully his opinion will change. I mean, there was a school of thought that said, look, we're so close to the election, don't put us through this again. It took us 4 weeks to pick a speaker, now is not the time. And maybe Trump was sympathetic to that. He didn't like really endorse Mike Johnson, but he made it harder for us a little bit. Because Mike Johnson runs down to Mar-a-Lago every time he's out of political capital and tries to get some of Trump's shine on him. Yeah, I'm not going to use any more metaphors.
Like in January, so in other words, the Democrats will also vote on who the speaker is?
No, in January, see, this is why it's
That's
tougher
what
for
I'm
Mike
saying.
Johnson.
January is just gonna be with the Republicans.
Yes.
Voting, that's what I
Correct.
was thinking.
Yeah, and the Democrats will not vote for him then. So it also comes down to how slim is our majority. And I think it's going to be pretty slim. So I think Mike Johnson has a real uphill battle. If we've got a majority like we do now, like 5, he ain't got, there's more than 5 that will not vote for Mike Johnson. And so you've got to get 218 Republicans, because the Democrats are not going to vote for him on, it's usually January 3rd. They're not going to vote for him then. So it really depends on, look, imagine this situation. Imagine we win the White House, the Senate, we get the House. And then, but also now imagine everybody's happy, nobody wants to fight. Mike Johnson wins the behind closed doors vote. He's from November until January, he's the presumptive speaker, and the president says, you know what, Mike's our guy. Then you get Mike. And that was the problem with Paul Ryan. I don't know if you all remember this.
Yeah.
That is what, now Trump didn't say it in the media, but he sent Mike Pence over to the GOP, and Mike Pence told us all, in a room not much, maybe 3 times the size of this, all the Republican conference behind closed doors, he said, Trump wants you to vote for Paul Ryan. And everybody did except for me. I was the only Republican who did not do that.
That's
So,
why you keep getting elected.
nobody's running against me this fall. I think I've got it so screwed up nobody wants the job. All right, who else had their hand up?
What I'm worried about is these warmongers, especially with their already sitting in the 101 over. And I'm really worried about that because Congress didn't declare war or anything, but we're inciting a war by just going over there. What I'm worried about is the draft. Are they going to forgive our Congress on the draft too?
Could you stop filming for a second? Now I gotta be on my best behavior. But you could be sued into oblivion as a congressman if your words weren't protected. So that's the only exception that I know of. Now they've created a few others, like for instance, there's a $17 million slush fund to pay for harassment suits in Congress, including sexual harassment. If $17 million has been paid out with your taxpayer money to settle harassment charges in our congressional offices. And nobody knows which congressman got the benefit of that slush fund. I can tell you I've never used that slush fund. And I've never used my own money either. Yes.
I just have a request. Would you tell Harriet Hagman that I love her I'm fed up speech and I would like to use it as accolades and thank you very much?
I will.
I
I'll
love
tell
that.
Janine Bell
She is
said-
Janine Bell Smith, Crescent Springs.
Okay.
Please tell her I love her.
She is amazing. She
She's
really is.
super.
There are some quiet people who are just like working really hard in Congress, and what I like about her, this is a double-edged sword. She remembers like what I tell her.
Just like a woman?
Yeah. She'll come up to me 6 months later and say, "This is happening just like you said it." Like, what did I say? And then she tells me what I said. I'm like, wow, I better be careful what I tell you.
So if Congress cannot be prosecuted for words they say in committee
Nope. Well, no, we'd all be out of a job. No, you're basically allowed to lie. I mean, Trey Gowdy reminded me of this in an oversight hearing once. He was like, we were, I forget, it was James Comey was in front of us. And, you know, we were gonna direct questions to James Comey, and Trey was the chair of the oversight committee at that time. And we were in the back room before we went out, and he said, remember, it is not a crime to lie. Like, yeah, I mean, because you could prove that Hillary lied, that, I mean, she was the topic of the thing, but it's just not a crime, so choose wisely. You gotta tell which ones of us are lying and which aren't. And you gotta get better at it. Or else I'm gonna serve with a bunch of liars. This lady back there.
I had to step out for an important phone call, so I don't know if this was asked. I'm very concerned to hear that Johnson came on the news about the illegals voting, and that's a real concern for me. We have states that are giving them licenses, very big states. We have an open border, and we have people like friends on the East Coast whose neighbors are that, and they're saying people are calling them and asking them to vote 4 and 5 times to register, and they're illegal aliens. So that's my concern, is that this border is open to get the vote under control. What are we going to do about that? How do we get a law passed that says you must be an American citizen and prove it to vote in this election?
Well, we did kind of cover that. You've got, number one, Mike Johnson was never going to fight on that. That was something to get you riled up and excited about that it might pass, but he had no intention of ever doing it, so I called him out on it. And then it's true, they just took it off and passed it without that. But that is an important issue, and we basically, if you have a Democrat, by the way, let's talk about why they're letting so many illegals in. They have two strategies. But if you have a Democrat president, you're pushing a string uphill, and the only thing you have is the power of the purse that really can be effective. That's effective. So why are they letting illegals in? Okay, there's the one thing that you're concerned about, that everybody should be concerned about, is are they going to let them vote? And then are they going to use that to sway an election? All right, in the swing states. But they let them into the blue states, and they welcome them, even though they bring crime with them, because California right now they're counted in the census. And the census is used to apportion congressional seats. So California has 6 extra congressional seats because of that. Even if illegals don't vote, California is a blue state and have 6 more reps in Congress, and that determines who's in the majority and who controls what bills come to the floor, right? That's significant. But what else is significant about the representatives? How many electoral votes does Kentucky get in the presidential? 8. Because we have 2 senators and 6 reps. Well, and that's for the president. So when they draw this map, 538, how do you get, half of that first? And which swing states matter? And is Maine going to matter? Or New Hampshire that only has like 2 or 4 electoral seats because they have 2 representatives. Well, California whites out. California's got as many extra illegal reps as Kentucky has reps. Like we're basically, our 6 electoral votes by virtue of their 6 rep seats are washed out by 6 votes in California. And that is why, that's another reason they're letting them in, that people don't pay enough attention to. And, oh man, what was the guy in charge of this under Trump? Wilbur Ross was in charge of the census. The Department of Commerce, I think, is what he was over. And they basically bullied him into letting this keep happening. Because remember, the rules for the census were set up when Trump was president, and Wilbur Ross was doing that, but they just went after him viciously. You probably do need to change the law. There's not a whole lot an administration can do to change this. They could report how many are illegal, but they're not even right now allowed to ask in the survey if you're a citizen or not. So administratively, you could change the questions that are on there, you just can't change the apportionment, but you could expose how big the problem is. But they bullied Wilbur Ross until he gave up on trying to do that. But we need a law passed. Some people say we need to modify the Constitution. They're claiming that because of the way the Constitution is written, you gotta count all people, not all citizens. So I've co-sponsored a constitutional amendment, but I would also, vote for the law to change that as well. So that's why it's important. Yeah.
Talk about power purse. I keep hearing about $35 trillion. Is it real much more than that when we take into account those other liabilities?
It is, but they're not contributing to the debt yet. They eventually will. Like, when they say Social Security is going to go insolvent and whatever date they pick, what they really mean is there's not enough money coming in to cover what goes out. But guess what? That's most of government anyway, right? What will happen when you hit that point, you can still maintain it. It just starts adding to the debt number that we're calculating. Like, you're right, this does not include unfunded liabilities, but when you get to the point where the outflows exceed the income, that Social Security will be adding to the debt. They say it'll collapse, but really what we'll do is make transfers, and then the debt will just start taking off even more. Yeah, well, we used to say that, but you're screwed now. because of inflation. Because during COVID, which you all know, I was the only person that opposed the CARES Act, $2.2 trillion, and they printed every penny of it. And when you print money, you cause inflation. And when you cause inflation, the Fed raises interest rates to try to slow down the economy. But now that's why they're lowering interest rates right before the election.
Some of that hasn't even been spent.
Some of the COVID money? Yeah. But they've spent a lot of it. Yeah, well, I'll just keep going.
Thomas, since we're in this issue about this money, look at what's happened in Helene, okay, in the hurricane. I know of a guy that hiked 15 miles up in the mountains of that area down there to find his parents. The debt and everything that's involved in that stuff, you're looking, in North Carolina, you're looking at trillions of dollars. Reinsurance markets, Tom, since 2017, a lot of these they've gone bankrupt. I mean, it's getting to be, where's that money? The government can't even back, I think, all that. What do you think on something like that? Because in North Carolina alone, Tom, there's going to be areas that 10 to 15 years before they're going to be able to get back on their feet. I-40 got washed away, a part of it. I mean, I've never seen losses like this.
I don't mean to be flippant, but they should claim to be part of Ukraine. We have no problem coming up with $1 billion for Ukraine. It just gets blown up. Yes. Well, they do. I mean, there have been efforts to put that in legislation and to slip it into bills. I mean, that's the plan. I'm totally against it. But I would honestly get rid of selective service right now. We don't have a draft. This is another one of those departments. And by the way, I know some of the people that run it. They're friends of mine. And they kind of agree with me that, I mean, it's not a big department, but it's still one of those things that you don't need right now. It doesn't make sense.
Do you think it will pass?
I don't know.
Right now, maybe 6 months.
If I tell you no, it'll probably be in the next omnibus. That's part of the crystal ball thing. That they can get anything passed if they get it in the omnibus, because you know that's going to pass. Yes, sir.
with the disaster with the hurricane, I just question why the military isn't involved. Why aren't there hundreds of Chinook helicopters carrying food and water and gasoline and everything into these remote areas that can't be accessed by road? Why isn't the military involved in this?
Well, because we have a president who's not even conscious. I know, by the way, in the military, okay, I may know some things about the military where people who have helicopters fly to the next state to get out of sales tax. Just because but the reason they do that, they gotta get a certain number of flight hours, they gotta exercise the equipment, they could be doing those types of missions there, right? Because they don't buy these helicopters and just let them sit there. The pilots won't get enough hours, the equipment, the people who maintain it won't know how to work on it. So they have to use that stuff. They might as well be using it for events like that. I agree. Let me go to somebody else. Yeah.
I'm concerned about the World Health Organization and the tax that passed. I mean, what can we do about that? First of all, can we stop funding?
Oh, yeah, all right. You've already got the answer. I don't even need the answer. Like, we should have defunded it in this latest CR. We should do it in December. If we had a speaker who would stick to that, we could do it. We did pass a thing in the House that people asked me to co-sponsor, and I did not co-sponsor it because I said it needs amended. I amended it on the floor of the House, and then I voted for it. But it was basically, it was saying that you can't bind our country with an agreement. It has to be a treaty, and that the Senate has to vote on it. And they gave a lot of examples of things that were in this treaty, like maybe vaccine mandate type stuff, okay? Well, guess what? You can't pass a treaty that binds U.S. citizens. Like, treaties bind countries to other countries. Hamilton said this in one of the Federalist Papers. He said, these are agreements between sovereigns and sovereigns, not binding things on citizens from sovereigns. You can't put laws in treaties like vaccine mandates. And so I was worried that the Republicans were all in a rush to argue that a bunch of senators should vote on this WHO stuff and then it would be fine. Well, guess what? No. Number one, I don't trust the Senate. Number two, you can't do laws in a treaty like that. So I offered an amendment, and I know somebody on the Rules Committee that got a vote on, that was me, who insisted that this amendment get a vote, and we got a vote on it, and it added a clause in there that says if there are any things in that treaty that are going to bind U.S. citizens, as a law would bind U.S. citizens, then those have to come also to the House of Representatives for a vote. Because that's the only constitutional way to pass law. It passed, so my amendment passed. Actually, I almost never do this, but it passed on a voice vote and I didn't demand a recorded vote. No, that's because it was my amendment. And the Democrats didn't, they put up like a tepid debate against it on the floor, but when it went by voice vote, they let it pass because they didn't want to contend it. And then that did pass the House. The full bill with my amendment on it did pass the House, but it's dead in the Senate.
Okay.
But if we could, the other answer is, if we control the Senate, you could bring it up for a vote, and then you would have to convince 60 of them to do that.
And they said that they couldn't get the treaty through, so they did it as a pact. Is that correct?
Well, here's the good, okay, the bad news is that's totally unconstitutional, okay? The good news is the next administration can undo it like that.
Right.
Because if it's not like something that was passed by at least one side of Congress, then it's not going to bind any future president.
And I just have one other question. How in the world can people in the House justify paying for pensions of Ukrainian politicians, but tell us we're going to run out of Social Security? This is absolutely galling to me.
Yeah, they're telling you we're gonna run out of Social Security, but they're also borrowing from the postal workers' pension fund. And they're borrowing from federal employees' pension funds to pay pensions in Ukraine of ex-politicians, right?
Right.
So they that's why I don't vote for any of that crap. And that's why it should be separate from other stuff. Are you gonna tell me?
I'm gonna tell you that it's about time, your henchman, no,
Okay.
it's about time to
Okay.
wrap it up.
All right, one more question.
One more, and?
Okay, I'll take Bradford's
Okay.
question here.
All right.
With the two attempts at assassination of President Trump and the sloppiness of the Secret Service, is there something going on there that I'm suspicious that there may be a conspiracy of what they're not being told to do, not so much of what they do, but what they're not told not to do?
Well, okay, so that's number one. I think the solution is give him a budget and let him hire private security, and give them the same immunities and privileges as a federal law enforcement agent. But the other thing is, there is one good inspector general that I know of, and he's over the Secret Service, and they're trying to get him fired right now. Jonathan, do you remember his name? Yeah, Kufari. Inspector General Kufari, C-U-F-A-R-I. He was a Trump appointee, and I have worked with him. So the Secret Service, one thing is they deleted all of their phones, all their text messages, everything from January 6th. Now, with the other side, if they're accusing you of something, that's probably something they're doing. Okay, so they try to put that on Trump because they said, oh, the Secret Service, they were in the car with Trump, they were around Trump, and so they purged all their messages there in January because Trump wanted to cover something up, right? And he had the Secret Service do that for him. But the reality is that they were still deleting those things when you got the current head, Mayorkas of DHS. So they're under DHS, the Secret Service is. So Mayorkas, that's one reason I had no problem voting to impeach him, is because he's overseen that, but also the pipe bombs, okay? The Secret Service are the ones who were supposed to catch that with the dogs and all that. They screwed all that up on January 6th. And Kufari is digging into this, and so what they've done, there's this group of inspectors general, and then there's this like ethics committee comprised of inspectors general, but it looks like that's been weaponized, basically the ethics committee, and that they are going after Kufari's employees, and Kufari himself, with these really spurious claims of malpractice or malfeasance, just to slow him down, right? But he's doing good work on that. He's the guy who's in charge of that. I trust the Inspector General over the Secret Service. There's some of them I don't trust, but that's one I do. And so I think if there is something going on, he'll get to the bottom of it if they don't fire him first or run him off with some fake ethics charge. All right.
The Tea Party, we have something to give to you tonight in tribute to you and to your life.
Okay.
It's not money.
That would look good on my porch. I haven't finished. Sure.
Real quick, we need to pass the buckets. Eric, here we go. Vote yes on 2. There are signs at the door. I have 50 of them. I'd like them all to go home with you, so I don't have to take them home. There are yard signs right by, see where Mike, raise your hand, Mike. There, if you take a sign on your way out. The Family Foundation, there's a newspaper on the table where you signed in. Grab one of those if you don't already get it. There's an NRA brochure on the table as well.
The next meeting is in November, and we're going to meet at the Erlanger Library, and it will be a legislative roundtable. We had it last year, it was really successful. I have 6 legislators coming, and it was very intimate, back and forth, not a big presentation, more like question and answer. Mary Ann? We have 2 seconds, talk about tomorrow night.
Okay, tomorrow night is a fundraiser that SHCLA is hosting, and a lot of people actually are. I want you guys to come, leadership is going to be there. This is a great opportunity for you to talk to them about certificate and why that's stalling out. Although the two of the people there are pretty supportive. And it's a great opportunity for you to interact with them, for them to see the people of Northern Kentucky. So please come down at 6 o'clock, Triple Crown, between 6 and 7:30 in Town Hall to explain the constitutional amendments. And those of you that lived in Union or Florence proper, what the medical marijuana dispensaries, what does that really mean? So if you want to understand those, or you know people that need to know those, that's Florence Baptist on October 15th, 6 to 7:30. It'll be myself, the mayor of Union, and Jessica Brewer, one of our county commissioners.
Thank you. TJ, I don't think you can speak for 2 seconds.
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, so next week, next Wednesday at 6:30 p.m., Metropolitan Club, my campaign is hosting a fundraiser with special guest Kyle Rittenhouse. If you guys haven't met him, this would be a good opportunity for you guys to do so. All of the RSVP information is on my Facebook, my X, and also if you're on my email list, it's there. So I just wanted to give that heads up. It's not 2 seconds, close enough.
Thank you all for coming.
Just making me mad. Exactly. You're just like, I see another comment. Reps better watch out.
Hey, you see they got signs over there.
We'll look forward to singing the next time, I guess.
Yeah, all right. I'd do it as they asked me to.
Would rather be flying and shooting the gun out the back. I know. At least they got, he said, Dad, he's the only armor. Gotta get more people that, you gotta get more people that elect them. You got, where are you in Ohio? Are you in occupied territory? Warren Davidson is good. Jim Jordan is good. Everybody else is better in Ohio. So work on them. I know. I want good sucker. And I don't sell no, I've tried.
So it's your son-in-law's company that I've seen. So, you and I have met when you were in the very beginning, right when you became a Congressman. And we developed some technology that was to stop distracted driving. But in any event, because of because of other things I've heard you speak about, I developed this main point. And you, an actual honorary influencer, I repost a lot of your stuff online, okay? Most of your discussions. And so there's somewhere floating around here today that I think someone took down. And so it has a certificate in there making you an honorary award. And then also, I didn't know because there's no monetary value what you think and we gave $10 billion. So, but there's no value to it, so it's not a significant right, exactly. And you can not be able to accept it. Give it to the RNC, whatever. But I think I look pretty closely on the wall, and I think what you want to bring to this job. What about, take this into serious consideration, what about Congressman for speaking?
Yeah! Time has for president.
Actually,
I'm causing more trouble there.
I could use this. Those emails all day.
You can let them
All the bullets. I'm sure there's an inspection.
I just want to thank you, Carol. I keep telling people, if you want to about what's going on, go to woman.
Yeah, right, yeah. You'll hear more truth here.
I wrote everything. I could have expected it, but I was among other people. And I sent a card when you were quite but I just want to say I'm sorry it wasn't sounded like that. She wasn't sick for a long time.
She was ill for a long time, and we did not expect that.
Take time to breathe.
Okay.
Tom. Pretty good for an old country boy.
You don't want to delay the vote.
Yes, how you doing? Nice to see you.
You're good. You're friends of a guy I've known for probably about 50 years.
Oh, who's that?
Kyle McLaughlin.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You and I talked at that little Rand Paul rally before the 22 election.
Right.
That little rally he had there.
Yeah, absolutely. God bless you. Let me get you on video here.
Oh, no.
Now, who is this? What's the... Who is this? Now tell me your name.
Mark Walter.
Mark Wilson. Well, you'll see this on YouTube and Facebook. Nice to be here with you.
I mean, if they needed money to do it, but the basic, I had a helicopter. Well, that's cool. Okay, so you got that's where people are really working hard to get the votes out. No, they don't. They got a problem with Democrats.
We all have a
And
problem.
getting Republicans to show up to vote, whether, you know, in something like that, I feel like the Republicans are more motivated. It's horrible, there's a tragedy. It's
Yes,
not-
it is, but I'm from the north, I've been through this kind
Yeah.
of stuff. Are they working on that?
I have no idea.
Thomas,
Okay.
Yeah, John.
take that. It's my
Okay.
card. And on any of this video that I did tonight here, pictures or otherwise,
Oh, okay.
if you want to use it in any way,
Okay.
free to do so, no copyright or anything, okay?
Okay.
I'll be on my YouTube channel, Travels with Dr. John Stephenson.
Okay.
And my Facebook page with 5,000 friends.
Okay.
Under John Stephenson.
See, we may be
But
able to use
anything you want to use for free.
All right, thank you.
Told him you could use anything you wanted to in my film videos. For
I think we do it, just get people that you know around here, make sure you get them to vote, that's the key. If they can, let's see, we got early voting here starting in October. I highly recommend that.
You are so beautiful to me. You are so beautiful to me. Can't you see? You're everything I hope for. You're everything I need. You are so beautiful to God. Everybody loves somebody sometime. Makes no difference when or where or how. Everybody loves somebody sometime. It's Mrs. Archambault's time right now. God bless you. We love you. You're on the end of the video I just did with the congressman upstairs.
Did you?
Yeah. Filmed the whole thing.
John, it's so good to see you.
It's
I'm
nice.
glad you're here and you've been blessed, your voice and,
Well, and I'm still alive.
right, well,
81 is still cooking.
81, all right, that's wonderful,
Oh,
John.
mercy.
Yeah.
Tell Bo and Pam I said hello.
Will do,
And-
definitely do.
Yeah.
And how is your June?
She's hanging in there. We're both hanging in there.
How many years?
Well, let's see. We met each other July the 28th, 1985.
Okay.
And we got married on March the 31st on 1989, and we took off through 8 countries in Europe on our honeymoon. And somewhere in the library here, there's the history of the counties, of all 120 counties, that June and I filmed together. 42,000 miles driving through Kentucky.
Wow, John, I know you are our living historian. It's wonderful.
Well, God bless you. Nice to see you. I told June, I said, I hope she's out there. I'm going to sing her a song.
Oh, I love hearing you sing. Yes.
Well, I better head on.
Okay.
Congressman will be down here in a little bit.
Okay, who was up there?
Thomas Massie.
Oh, okay.
And he spoke and answered questions.
Questions, good.
You know.
Good about elections.
And I got to sing down here. See you all later.
Okay, John.
God bless you. Have a nice day.
Bless you.
Bye-bye.
Your warm smile and your beautiful voice.
Well,
It's a nice uplifting thing.
as I told somebody, Billy Graham taught me in 1956 when I gave my life to the Lord. He said, John and Judy, my little sister Judy was there at the same time. John and Judy, he said, it's the Holy Spirit's job to convict. It's God's job to judge. It's my job, and they poke me on the chest. Now you, Johnny, and you, Judy, your job to love. And so I've tried to love all my life. And thank goodness for people like you, it's easy to love. And your cohorts here. See you all a little later now. Give me a smile. Give us a smile, ladies. Right here at the Boone County Library, where you'll be able to find anything there is worth knowing. Right here in Burlington, Kentucky. Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition of godly principles. Red, yellow, brown, black, and white, we're all precious in Jesus' sight.
Amen.
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 Some people say a man is made out of mud. A poor man's made out of muscle and blood. A muscle and blood and skin and bones. A mind that's weak and a back that's strong. You lose 16 tons. What did you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. Aunt Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store.
My dad used to sing that to
Did
me.
he? Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, he used
Wonderful.
to sing that to me.
Now, if I can get down over this step without falling down. Oh, thank you, Lord. Yeah, back to the car. Woo!
You think we're going to get him back in office?
Who, Thomas? Oh,
no,
yeah.
you think we're going to get Trump back in office?
Yes.
I hope
Yeah,
so.
I think this guy on the debate last night made a big difference.
Yeah,
Helpful.
he did amazing.
He did amazing.
He really did amazing.
He was young, intelligent, bright, and knew what to say, when to say it, and how to be honest.
And he was courteous.
And courteous, absolutely.
He just was a gentleman.
Yes,
He
my
ju-
wife just thought he was terribly great.
Yes, he
Absolutely.
was. He was terribly great. You are correct. Can I get the door for you?
Yeah, let's get it open there, okay? Take care now. Thank you so
We'll
much.
see you next time.
See you next time. Traveled with Dr. John Stephenson here at the Boone County Library in Burlington, Kentucky. Had a great evening here with Congressman Thomas Massie speaking and answering questions and filming all the great crowd that was here to hear him. And several state reps, state senators there listening in the audience. Had a great day. filming. Now we're listening to WIOK 107.5 FM on the radio dial. Tri-State Gospel. Gil and Jan Hammond. 859-750-0000. www.begottensson.com. And Tri-State Gospel's Post Office Box 50, Falmouth, Kentucky, 41040 zip code. Join them as a partner down there at WIOK 107.5 FM. They need partners down there in the radio station. Help them out. WIOK 107.5 FM on the radio dial. Post Office Box 50, Falmouth, Kentucky, 41040 zip code. Send them down a little contribution. Tell them John sent you. I've known them for 32 years. That's how long they've had the station there. They're great educators, both of them. Great Christians, a great minister. Gil Hammond is a great minister. Gospel music throughout Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, Ohio. Praise the Lord. Headed for home now. Love you, love you, love you.